The front door clicked open softer than usual. Julian Hartwell stepped into his own home like a stranger, briefcase still in hand, tie loosened from a flight that landed 3 hours early. He'd texted no one. The Singapore deal had collapsed faster than expected, and for once, he'd chosen to come home instead of extending the trip. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then he heard it. Singing. Not just any singing, 2 small voices, slightly off-key, giggling between verses, and then a third voice, warm and steady, guiding them through. Julian moved down the hallway, past the marble staircase, past the oil paintings he'd never really looked at. The sound was coming from the sunroom. He stopped at the doorway. His twin daughters, Iris and Lily, both 7 years old, sat cross-legged on the floor in their matching lavender dresses. Between them sat the nanny, Celeste Acaffer, her dark skin glowing in the afternoon light, her hands moving gracefully as she sang. But it wasn't the singing that made Julian freeze. It was what they were singing. A language he didn't recognize, rhythmic, melodic, ancient-sounding. And around them, spread across the rug, were objects he had never seen before. Wooden beads, a small clay bowl filled with water, bundles of dried herbs tied with string, and a faded cloth embroidered with symbols. Celeste's eyes were closed. The girl's hands rested gently on the beads. Julian's chest tightened. What the hell is this? His voice cut through the room like a blade. Celeste's eyes snapped open. The girls flinched. Mr. Hartwell, she started, rising quickly. I asked you a question. His voice was ice. What are you teaching my daughters? Iris looked at her sister. Lily's lip began to tremble. We were just... Celeste's voice was calm, but her hands shook slightly as she gathered the items. We were honoring your late wife's memory, the way she used to. Julian's face went pale. Excuse me. Your wife, Amara, Celeste said gently. She taught me this song before she passed. She wanted the girls to know it one day, to know where they came from. Julian's jaw clenched. My wife never mentioned any of this to me. Because you never asked, Celeste said quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. Iris stood up, her small voice breaking the tension. Daddy, Mommy used to sing to us when we were bobbies. Miss Celeste was just helping us remember. Go to your room, Julian said flatly. Both of you. Daddy. Now. The girls scrambled out, casting terrified glances back at Celeste. When they were gone, Julian turned to her, his voice trembling with barely controlled fury. You do not bring, whatever this is, into my home. You do not fill their heads with superstition or rituals or anything I haven't approved. Do you understand me? Celeste met his gaze, unflinching. With respect, Mr. Hartwell, this isn't superstition. This is their heritage, their mother's heritage, and you've been erasing it. His hands curled into fists. Get out. Mr. Hartwell. Pack your things, you're done. Celeste stood there for a long moment, her chest rising and falling. Then she nodded slowly. I'll be gone by morning. She walked past him, head high, and Julian stood alone in the sunroom, staring at the beads and cloth still scattered on the floor. He didn't touch them. He didn't even know what they meant. That night the house was unbearable. Iris and Lily refused to come down for dinner. When Julian went upstairs, he found them huddled together in Lily's bed, clutching a photograph of their mother. We hate you, Iris whispered. Julian's breath caught. Iris. You made Miss Celeste leave, Lily said, tears streaming down her face. She was the only one who talked about Mommy, the only one who remembered her the right way. I remember your mother every day, Julian said, his voice strained. No, you don't, Iris shot back. You just pretend she never existed. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He tried to explain, tried to reason, but the girls turned away from him, silent and cold. Julian left the room and stood in the hallway, his hands pressed against the wall, breathing hard. He hadn't cried since the funeral. But now, alone in the dark, something inside him cracked. The next morning, Celeste was gone. No note, no goodbye. Just an empty room and the faint scent of lavender. Julian tried to carry on. He hired a new nanny within 48 hours, a stern, efficient woman named Mrs. Brennan who ran the house like a military operation. The girls obeyed her, but they didn't speak to her. They barely spoke at all. Weeks passed. Julian threw himself into work, convinced that time would heal the rift. But the girls grew quieter, more withdrawn. Their laughter disappeared. Their light dimmed. One evening, Julian found Lily sitting alone in the sunroom, holding the wooden beads Celeste had left behind. "Where did you get those?" he asked. "I hid them," Lily said simply, "so you wouldn't throw them away." Julian sat down beside her. "Lily, I need you to understand. I was trying to protect you." "From what?" she asked, her voice small. From things I don't understand." Lily looked up at him with eyes far too wise for a 7-year-old. "Mommy always said you were scared of things you couldn't control." Julian's throat tightened. "She said that." Lily nodded. "She said that's why she loved you, because you tried so hard to keep us safe, but she also said, sometimes you have to let go." Julian stared at his daughter, this tiny person who suddenly seemed to understand him better than anyone ever had. "What was she teaching you?" he asked quietly. "Celeste, what was the song about?" "It's a blessing," Lily said, "for people who have gone to the ancestors, so they know we still love them, so they don't feel alone." Julian felt something break open inside him. "Your mother believed in that." Lily nodded. "She said her grandmother taught her, and her grandmother's grandmother. It's been in our family forever." Julian looked down at the beads in Lily's small hands. "I didn't know," he whispered. "Because you never asked," Lily said, echoing Celeste's words. And in that moment, Julian Hartwell, billionaire CEO, master of the universe, realized he had failed at the one thing that mattered most. He hadn't known his own wife. And he was losing his daughters the same way. Julian couldn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation he'd ever had with Amara. Or rather, every conversation he hadn't had. He'd loved her, God, he'd loved her, but had he ever really known her? She'd been born in Nigeria, raised in London, educated at Oxford. They'd met at a gala in New York, her in a golden dress that seemed to capture every light in the room, him fresh off his first major acquisition, drunk on success and champagne. She'd challenged him that night, told him his fortune meant nothing if he had no soul. He'd married her 6 months later. But somewhere along the way, between board meetings and international deals and the relentless grind of building an empire, he'd stopped asking her questions. He'd stopped listening. At 3 a.m., Julian got out of bed and went to Amara's study, a room he hadn't entered since her death. It was exactly as she'd left it. Books lined the walls. Art from West Africa hung in careful arrangements. Her desk was still cluttered with notebooks, sketches, letters. Julian sat down in her chair and opened the first notebook. Her handwriting filled the pages, thoughts, poems, prayers. And then, tucked between 2 pages, he found it. A letter, addressed to him. "My dearest Julian, if you're reading this, I'm already gone, and I know you're struggling. You always struggled with things you couldn't fix. I need you to know something. I didn't hide my culture from you. You just never asked. I didn't tell you about the songs my grandmother taught me because you didn't want to hear them. I didn't share the rituals because I knew they made you uncomfortable. You wanted the version of me that fit into your world, and I loved you enough to give you that, but it wasn't all of me. The girls deserve to know the other half, the half that believes in ancestors and blessings, and the unseen threads that connect us all. Don't let your fear rob them of that. If something happens to me, promise me you'll find someone who can teach them, someone who understands. I've already found her. Her name is Celeste. Trust her, Julian, even when it scares you. Especially when it scares you. All my love. Amara. Julian's hands shook as he read the letter again. And again. Amara had planned this. She'd known he would struggle. She'd known he would resist. And she'd left him a way forward. If he was brave enough to take it. The next morning, Julian called his assistant. I need you to find someone for me. Celeste Okafor. Last known residence was here, but she may have moved. I don't care what it costs. Find her. It took 3 days. When the call came through, Julian's heart pounded. We found her, sir. She's working at a community center in Brooklyn, teaching children's music classes. Julian grabbed his coat. The community center was a modest building tucked between a bodega and a laundromat. Inside, the walls were covered with children's artwork and handmade posters. Julian heard her voice before he saw her. Singing. The same melody. He followed the sound to a small room where Celeste sat in a circle with a dozen children, all of them clapping and laughing. When she saw him standing in the doorway, her expression didn't change. She finished the song, dismissed the class gently, and then stood to face him. Mr. Hartwell. I read my wife's letter, he said. Celeste's eyes softened. Then you know. I know I was wrong, Julian said, his voice breaking. I know I let fear control me, and I know my daughters are suffering because of it. Celeste crossed her arms. Why are you here? Because I need your help, Julian said. Not as a nanny, as a teacher, as someone who knew my wife in ways I didn't. Celeste studied him for a long moment. Your daughters don't need me, Mr. Hartwell. They need you. I don't know how to give them what they need. Then learn, Celeste said simply. Julian swallowed hard. Will you teach me? Celeste tilted her head. Teach you what? Everything, Julian said. The songs, the rituals, the parts of Amara I never knew. I can't bring her back, but I can honor her, and I can make sure the girls know where they come from. Celeste's expression softened. That, she said quietly, is the first wise thing I've heard you say. Celeste didn't return to the Hartwell estate. Instead, Julian went to her. Twice a week, he would leave his office early, drive to Brooklyn, and sit in that small community center room while Celeste taught him. Not just about Amara's culture. About connection, about heritage, about the parts of his daughter's identity he'd been too afraid to explore. The first lesson was simple. Before we begin, Celeste said, I need you to understand something. This isn't about religion. It's not about converting you or the girls to any particular belief system. Julian nodded, listening carefully. This is about ancestry, Celeste continued. About honoring the people who came before us. In Igbo culture, Amara's grandmother's culture, we believe that our ancestors are still present, not as ghosts but as guardians, as sources of wisdom and strength. And the songs, Julian asked. The songs are prayers, Celeste said, but not the kind you're thinking of. They're conversations, ways of staying connected to those we've lost. Julian absorbed this slowly, and Amara wanted the girls to know this. She wanted them to know all of themselves, Celeste said. The British side, the American side, and the Nigerian side. She was afraid that if she died, you would erase that part of them. Julian's chest tightened. She was right to be afraid. Celeste's expression softened. But you're here now, that's what matters. Over the following weeks, Celeste taught Julian the fundamentals. She taught him about Kai, the personal spirit that guides each person's destiny. She taught him about the importance of names, how each of the girls' middle names, Adiz and Chiamaka, carried specific meanings and blessings. She taught him the songs, the ones Amara had sung to the girls when they were bobbies, the ones that connected them to generations of women who had loved and protected their children. But the hardest lesson came in week 3. Today, Celeste said, we're going to talk about grief. Julian stiffened. I thought this was about culture. It is, Celeste said. Because in Igbo tradition, grief isn't something you hide, it's something you honor. When someone dies, the community gathers, they wail, they celebrate, they tell stories, they keep the person alive through memory. We had a funeral, Julian said defensively. Did you wail? Celeste asked gently. Julian looked away. No. Did you tell stories? A few people did. Did you? Julian's jaw tightened. No. Why not? Because I needed to be strong, Julian said. For the girls, for everyone. Celeste leaned forward. Mr. Hartwell, in trying to be strong, you taught your daughters that grief is shameful, that missing their mother is a weakness. That's not strength. That's denial. Julian felt the words hit him like physical blows. I didn't know what else to do, he whispered. I know, Celeste said softly, but now you do, so let's practice. Practice what? Grieving, Celeste said. Tell me about Amara, not the facts, not the timeline. Tell me what you miss about her. Julian's throat felt tight. I can't. Yes, you can. If I start. You'll cry, Celeste said, and then you'll breathe, and you'll survive, just like you've survived every day since she died. Julian stared at his hands. Then slowly he began to speak. I miss the way she laughed, he said quietly. It was this big, uninhibited laugh that filled the whole room. She didn't care who was watching, she just laughed. What else? Celeste encouraged. I miss the way she danced in the kitchen while making breakfast. She'd put on Fela Kuti or Burn a Boy and just move. The girls would join her, and I'd watch from the doorway feeling like the luckiest man alive. His voice cracked. I miss the way she challenged me. She never let me take the easy way out. If I was being stubborn or narrow-minded, she'd call me on it. She made me better. Tears streamed down his face now. I miss her smell, her voice, the way she tucked the girls in at night, the way she looked at me like I was more than just my bank account or my company, like I was enough. He covered his face with his hands and sobbed. Celeste let him cry. She didn't try to comfort him or stop him. She just sat there bearing witness. When Julian finally looked up, his eyes were red and swollen. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For making me remember, Julian said. For not letting me forget. After 6 weeks of learning, Celeste finally spoke the words Julian had been hopping for. You're ready. Julian looked up. Ready for what? To teach your daughters, Celeste said. Julian's heart pounded. I don't know if I can. You can, Celeste assured him, and I'll be there with you, but they need to hear it from you. They need to know that you value this part of them. Julian took a deep breath. When? This weekend, Celeste said. I'll come to your home, we'll do it together. That Friday night, Julian told the girls that Miss Celeste was coming to visit. Their reactions were immediate and overwhelming. Iris burst into tears. Lily threw her arms around his waist. Really? Lily asked, her voice muffled against his shirt. She's really coming back. Yes, Julian said, holding them both. And I have something important to tell you both. They pulled back, looking at him with wide eyes. I made a mistake, Julian said. A big one. I was wrong to send Miss Celeste away. I was wrong to keep you from learning about your mother's culture, and I'm sorry. You mean it? Iris asked cautiously. I mean it, Julian said, and I want to make it right. Miss Celeste has been teaching me, and now we're going to learn together, all 3 of us. The girls' faces transformed. Can we sing the songs again? Lily asked. Yes, Julian said. Can we use the beads? Iris added. Yes, Julian said. All of it, Everything your mother would have wanted you to know. That night, for the first time in months, the girls fell asleep smiling. Saturday afternoon, Celeste arrived carrying a woven basket. The girls practically tackled her at the door. "Miss Celeste," they cried in unison. Celeste laughed and knelt down, gathering them into her arms. "I missed you both so much." "We missed you too," Lily said. "Are you staying?" Iris asked hopefully. Celeste looked at Julian, who nodded. "I'm not moving back in," Celeste said gently. "But I'm going to visit regularly, and I'm going to teach you and your father about your heritage, about your mother's culture. Would you like that?" Both girls nodded eagerly. They gathered in the sunroom, sitting in a circle on the floor just as they had months before. Celeste opened the basket and pulled out the familiar items: wooden beads, the clay bowl, dried herbs, the embroidered cloth. "Before we begin," Celeste said, "your father has something he wants to tell you." The girls looked at Julian expectantly. Julian took a deep breath. "I've been learning about your mother, about the traditions she grew up with, about the songs her grandmother taught her, and I want to share those things with you." "You do?" Iris asked, surprised. "I do," Julian said, "because your mother wanted you to know all of who you are, not just the parts I was comfortable with, but all of you." He gestured to the beads in Celeste's hands. "These aren't just decorations," Julian explained, repeating what Celeste had taught him. "Each bead represents an ancestor, someone who came before us, someone whose strength and wisdom we carry." "Like great-grandma Dee's?" Lily asked. Julian smiled. "Exactly like great-grandma Dee's, and her mother before her, and her mother before that." "Can you sing the song?" Iris asked shyly. Julian looked at Celeste, who nodded encouragingly. "I'll try," Julian said. And then, in his uncertain, unpracticed voice, Julian began to sing the song Amara had once sung to their daughters. The words were halting, his pronunciation wasn't perfect, but the girls didn't care. They watched their father with wonder and joy, and when he finished, they applauded. "That was beautiful, Daddy," Lily said. "Can we sing it together?" Iris asked. "Yes," Julian said, his voice thick with emotion. "Let's sing it together." And so they did. Julian, Iris, Lily, and Celeste, sitting in a circle on the floor, singing the old songs, honoring the ancestors, keeping Amara's memory alive. When they finished, the room fell silent. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was full. "Mommy would be so happy," Lily whispered. "She is happy," Celeste said softly. "I can feel it." Julian looked at his daughters, truly looked at them, and saw them whole for the first time since Amara died. Not just half of themselves, but complete. British and American and Nigerian. Logical and spiritual. His and hers. Perfect. In the weeks that followed, the Hartwell household transformed. Celeste visited every Saturday, bringing new lessons, new stories, new songs. She taught the girls how to tie jeel, traditional head wraps, just like their grandmother used to wear. She showed them how to prepare simple Nigerian dishes: jollof rice, chin-chin, puff-puff. She told them stories about Amara's childhood in London, about visiting family in Lagos, about the grandmother who had loved her fiercely. And Julian participated in all of it. He learned to cook jollof rice badly at first, but the girls loved him for trying. He practiced the songs until his pronunciation improved. He asked questions, real questions, about his wife's culture, her beliefs, her dreams. One evening, after Celeste had left and the girls were getting ready for bed, Iris came into Julian's study. "Daddy," she said softly. Julian looked up from his laptop. "Yes, sweetheart." "Can I ask you something?" "Always." Iris climbed into his lap, something she hadn't done in months. "Why didn't Mommy teach us this stuff when she was alive?" Julian's chest tightened. "I think she wanted to, but I didn't make space for it." What do you mean? Julian thought carefully about how to answer. I was so focused on my world, on business and success and the things I understood, that I didn't ask your mother about her world, about the things that mattered to her, and I think she felt like maybe I wouldn't understand or wouldn't appreciate it. But you understand now, Iris said. I'm trying, Julian said, and I'm sorry it took me so long. Iris hugged him tightly. I'm glad you're trying now. Julian held his daughter close, overwhelmed with gratitude and grief in equal measure. 3 months after Celeste's return, Julian made a decision. He called a family meeting, himself, the girls, and Celeste. They sat together in the living room, the girls curious, Celeste calm. I've been thinking, Julian began, about how we can honor your mother, not just in private but in a way that helps other people too. Like what? Lily asked. I want to start a foundation, Julian said. The Amara Hartwell Cultural Heritage Foundation. It would help families, especially mixed heritage families, stay connected to their roots. We'd offer language classes, cultural workshops, storytelling programs, everything your mother would have wanted. The girl's eyes widened. Really? Iris breathed. Really? Julian said. And I want you both to be part of it. When you're older, if you want, you can help run it. But for now, I just want you to know that your mother's legacy is going to live on. Through us. Through this. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Mommy would love that. She would, Celeste said softly, smiling at Julian with pride. There's one more thing, Julian said, turning to Celeste. I want you to be the director. You know this work better than anyone. You understand what it means to preserve culture while building bridges. Please, Celeste, say yes. Celeste's eyes glistened. Julian, I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Julian said. Celeste smiled. I don't need to think about it. Yes, of course, yes. The girls cheered and threw themselves at Celeste, hugging her tightly. And Julian watched, his heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. 6 months later, the Amara Hartwell Cultural Heritage Foundation officially opened its doors. The building was a beautiful brownstone in Manhattan, filled with light and color. There were classrooms for language instruction, a library filled with books from around the world, a community kitchen where families could cook traditional meals together, and a performance space for music and dance. On opening day, over 300 people attended, families from Nigerian, Ghanaian, Jamaican, Indian, Korean, and countless other backgrounds, all seeking to stay connected to their heritage while navigating American life. Julian stood at the podium with Iris and Lily on either side of him, both girls wearing traditional Nigerian attire, beautiful Ankara dresses with matching jewel. My wife, Amara, Julian began, his voice steady but emotional, taught me that identity isn't singular. We're not just one thing. We're the sum of everywhere we've been, everyone who came before us, and everything we choose to carry forward. He looked down at his daughters, who beamed up at him. For too long, I tried to simplify my daughters' identity, to make them fit into the world I understood, but in doing so, I almost erased half of who they are. He gestured to Celeste, who stood at the side of the stage. This remarkable woman showed me that heritage isn't a burden, it's a gift, and preserving it, honoring it, is one of the most important things we can do. The crowd applauded. The Amara Hartwell Cultural Heritage Foundation exists to help families do what I failed to do for too long, celebrate all of who they are, to teach their children the languages, songs, stories, and traditions that connect them to their ancestors. Because when we know where we come from, we know who we are. Iris and Lily stepped forward and cut the ceremonial ribbon together. The crowd erupted in cheers. And as Julian watched his daughters, proud, confident, connected to their heritage, he felt Amara's presence. Not as a ghost, but as a blessing. That evening, the family gathered at home for their weekly ritual, something they'd started months ago and maintained faithfully. They called it Memory Circle. Each week they would sit together and share stories about Amara, funny stories, sad stories, ordinary moments that had become extraordinary in retrospect. Tonight was Julian's turn to start. "This week," he said, "I remember the time your mother convinced me to take salsa dancing lessons. I was terrible. I stepped on her feet constantly, but she just laughed and said I had rhythm hidden somewhere deep, deep down." The girls giggled. "My turn," Iris said. "I remembered how Mommy used to make up silly songs about whatever we were doing. Like when we were brushing our teeth, she'd sing about the tooth fairy's secret life." "I remember those," Lily said, laughing. "She said the tooth fairy was actually a retired ballerina who collected teeth to build a castle." They all laughed, the sound filling the room with warmth. Then Celeste spoke. "I remember when Amara first told me about you girls, before you were born. She said she was going to raise daughters who were brave enough to be all of themselves, who never felt like they had to choose between the different parts of their identity." Celeste's voice grew soft, and looking at you both now, I can see she succeeded. Iris and Lily smiled, their eyes shining. After the girls went to bed, Julian and Celeste stood on the balcony overlooking the city. "Thank you," Julian said quietly. "For what?" Celeste asked. "For not giving up on us. For showing me who my wife really was. For giving my daughters their whole selves back." Celeste smiled. "You did that, Julian. I just opened the door." "I almost missed it," Julian said, his voice heavy with regret. "I almost lost everything that mattered because I was too afraid to see beyond my own understanding." "But you didn't," Celeste said firmly. "You chose differently. You chose to learn, to grow, to honor Amara by honoring all of who she was." Julian nodded, looking out at the glittering skyline. "Do you think she knows, wherever she is? Do you think she knows we're doing this?" Celeste was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "In my tradition, we believe the ancestors are always watching, always guiding. So yes, I think she knows, and I think she's proud." Julian felt tears prick his eyes. "I hope so." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, the city humming below them. Then Julian said, "Celeste, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Why did you come back? After everything I said to you, after I fired you, why did you give us another chance?" Celeste considered the question carefully. "Because I saw something in your daughters that reminded me of my own daughter," she said finally. "Mariana. She died when she was 5. Julian's breath caught. "I'm so sorry." "It was a long time ago," Celeste said, "but I remember how desperately I wanted someone to see her, to remember her, to keep her alive through stories and traditions and love." She turned to Julian. "Your daughters needed someone to do that for their mother, and you needed someone to show you how. I couldn't walk away from that, not when I knew what it felt like to lose someone and have no one help you carry it." Julian's throat felt tight. "You gave us more than you know." "You gave something back," Celeste said. "You gave me purpose, a way to honor my daughter by helping other families honor theirs." They stood together, two people bound by loss and healing, watching the city lights flicker like stars. If stories like this matter to you, stay with us. Sometimes the most important journeys we take are the ones that lead us back to the people we love, to see them fully, to honor them completely, to carry forward everything they gave us. 5 years later, the Amara Hartwell Cultural Heritage Foundation had helped over 5,000 families stay connected to their roots. Iris and Lily, now 12, volunteered there every weekend, teaching younger children traditional dances and songs from various cultures. Julian had stepped back from day-to-day operations at his company to focus on the foundation and his daughters. And Celeste had become a nationally recognized advocate for cultural preservation, speaking at conferences and writing a book called Carrying All of Ourselves: Heritage, as healing. One Saturday afternoon, Julian found the girls in the Foundation's dance studio, teaching a group of young children a traditional Igbo dance. Iris led the steps, while Lily kept the rhythm on a small drum. When the class ended, a little girl no more than 6 approached Lily shyly. "Miss Lily," she said. "Yes. My mommy is from the Philippines, but she doesn't talk about it much. Do you think she'd teach me stuff if I asked?" Lily knelt down to the girl's level, smiling gently. "I think she would love to, and if she needs help, we can help her too. That's what we're here for." The little girl's face lit up. "Really?" "Really," Lily said. Julian watched from the doorway, his heart swelling with pride. His daughters had learned not just to carry their own heritage, but to help others carry theirs. They had become exactly what Amara had dreamed they would be. Whole, confident, connected, and utterly, beautifully themselves. If this story touched your heart, show some love by hitting the like button. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. You might just find someone nearby who understands what it means to honor where you come from while building where you're going. Subscribe, because every story we share is meant to remind you that identity isn't about choosing. It's about embracing all of who you are, all of where you come from, all of the love that made you. The people we lose never truly leave us. They live on in the traditions we keep, the stories we tell, the songs we sing, and the children we raise to be proud of every part of themselves. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are the sum of every ancestor who loved you into being. Carry them forward with pride.